Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. And in this one, I will be covering the Discipline Priest moving into Dragonflight, everything it has to offer to you. Should you or should you not consider picking it up as a main specializations, its strengths, its weaknesses, its competitive viability also taken into account. And if you want to stay up to date with news and changes related to Dragonflight, so you always have the most up-to-date information, always make the best decision for yourself related to the game, then do make sure you hit the subscribe button because I am working diligently to be an excellent resource for that main purpose. Now, Discipline Priest was my favorite specialization in Shadowlands. I would honestly deem it as my number one specialization. And I think that moving into Dragonflight, you're getting a lot of new tools to add into that already existing fun toolkit. Not to mention that if you're a DPS player at heart, you love doing damage, pumping out numbers, but you're really tired of these long queues and finding teams is really difficult, you're still going to be able to satisfy that damage dealing itch while getting all of the benefits of being a healer and getting fast groups and fast queue times. And that's something you really want to take into account for it. One of the big differences, if you've played Discipline Priest in Shadowlands or from Legion onward, is that now Power Word Shield has a cooldown rather than a weakened soul debuff. And this is going to be a bit of a readjustment if you're returning to this spec and you'd already played it. Now, if you hadn't played it previously, you're probably going to pretty easily pick it up and get it under your belt. It still focuses on just ramming out as much damage with Atonement. You can see I'm running Trinity in this build and running a Smite build. So I need to make sure I'm keeping Atonement on 3 targets. And if I can do that, my Smites, my Penances, and my Shadow Fiend are going to get 30% more crit. You can see that Penance blasting down the Shadow Priest. So this is like a high min-max APM build to try and play into the strengths and the build that I liked specifically with the Discipline Priest. I have seen some players experimenting with the right wing of the disc talents, going into kind of like this shadow kind of disc priest build where you're focused more on dealing shadow damage and edging into that element and fantasy of the class. I wasn't really a big fan of that. I love these penances that just like there's really no satisfying feeling than pressing a penance when you see it lit up because you've gotten enough stacks to get just a massive triple duplicated penance hit onto the target. Some things that I was disappointed with is that Light's Wrath, at least in PvP, is kind of like pathetically weak. It just doesn't really do a lot of damage. The only main advantage I found through trying it, and because I picked it because I really liked it when it existed in Legion, the only main advantage I've seen for it is that if you get interrupted on Penance or something, you can still use it because it's a different school of magic, and that's important to know because Shadow Mend has been removed. So you're not going to be able to just cast Shadow Mend, get kicked, cast Penance, cast Shadow Mend because you got kicked. That type of like fluid immediate recovery has been removed. That is maybe likely healthy for the game because otherwise you were kind of like somewhat uninterruptible, but at the same time you're going to really be limited on mobility. I definitely noticed not having Soul Shape or not having Door of Shadows to be able to move around. I felt a lot slower, but honestly maybe that's better for the game as a whole, to not have every class moving at the speed of light and being able to blink, a million miles a minute, having some classes with strengths and weaknesses, because I do really feel like it's a strength to be able to just like bunker down, turret down, get this Trinity, get this Atonement build going, and just get out a bunch of penances. You're almost like, you're like a turret just going, like you're not going to be able to move around going, because it might be a little bit too powerful. So I'm kind of okay with it. Hopefully they address some of these issues with other classes of having only strengths and no weaknesses, because then it's going to be kind of rough for you, and that's where we get into the competitive viability of Discipline Priest. One of the main components I think that could hold it back is its limited mana pool. Now in solo queue, if you're going to be doing a lot of PvP in this environment, the games are generally very fast, and you're not going to really have time to hit the point where you've run out of mana. But in team play 3v3, if the game balance doesn't shift dramatically, I'm anticipating those to be much longer matches, because I think dampening starts at something like 2 minutes into each one of these rounds, maybe even a minute into each of these rounds, and it's like twice as fast how much it reduces healing. So the game just kind of snowballs and ends really quickly. Whereas in 3v3, it's dampening doesn't start until 5 minutes and ramps up half as slowly. So if you're someone who's got friends and you want to play 3v3, you want to go for Gladiator, its competitive viability is probably going to be a bit lower. In solo queue specifically, I think if you're like if you're sick, nasty at this class, like you could definitely make it work. And do remember that you're not competing with any of the other classes for your rank 1 title in ranked solo queue. You're only competing against other discipline priests. So you could take it upon yourself as a bit of a challenge. But I think if the classes that are currently strong, like Death Knights and Demon Hunters, historically, priest healers have not done well into those classes specifically. And if that were to stay the case, then you may have some struggle there. So competitive viability is definitely something to take into account. But I really like all of the tools. I like the build. I still feel like Prayer of Mending and Renew, you can see them on my action bar on the right. These are spells that were returned to you as a Discipline Priest. I've yet to really find a place to fit them in, just because you're so like global cooldown pressured. Like you got to keep Purge the Wicked up on multiple targets. You got to keep your Atonements up on multiple targets. You got to be pressing Penance on cooldown. You want to be smashing Smite because of the extra crit benefits towards it for your Atonement healing, that you're kind of like struggling to fit in a Prayer of Mending. But at the same time, I'm thinking the situations where you're going to use it is like if a Death Knight's training you down, you're not really able to cast very much. Tossing up a Renew as a little bit of an extra healing instant buffer is probably going to be all right. But I'm not anticipating like Prayer of Mending and Renew to be like the main components of your rotation. I really like the reflective shields. I was running that build in this. It did recently get nerfed quite heavily. And this is so that when you powered shield a target, enemies that attack it are also going to take damage back. So you can add in to that machine gun penance pressure, like here onto this warrior, and he's attacking into a powered shield. And I can use Rapture both as like a defensive and an offensive cooldown, which is really cool. And at the same time, you're also going to be getting legendary effects like the double power infusion just cooked into your talents. So I can power infusion my warlock, and I'm still going to get it to juice up my smites and feel really good about myself, just going do 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 do. So I'm really happy about that as well. You've got emergency healing cooldowns. You've got access to Void Shift, which was previously Shadow only. You've also got Holy Ward Life, which honestly, I thought Holy Ward Life was going to be the most OP thing ever. And it's when you use a heal on a target that's really low, it's basically doubles the value of the healing and reduces its cooldown. But you gamble a lot letting that target get into that range before it's gonna be too much and the target's gonna die. So it's like a really risky gamble there with that powered life. But again, because of Shadow Men being removed, I just wanted to get another instant heal in these emergency situations to try and be able to recover and survive. So it was fitting nicely there. Mind Games did get recently nerfed, so I opted to not play it in this specific playthrough. But I had started to see other priests still playing it, and it seemed like it was still all right, or at least decently threatening. So I'll likely try that out in like another playthrough as I do Discipline Priest. And that's kind of the cool part of it, is that if you get bored of a specific play style of it, it seems like you're going to have some other options, right? And they seem to be pretty diligent at making sure that talents are getting tuned. Like for example, with Warriors, when I'd seen it, like originally a Skull Splitter build, at least in PvP, was not really a viable option, but recently now it's looking like it might be the most meta option. So if they stay on top of it with balance and tuning, you're likely going to have a lot of different possibilities to explore that are really going to just keep you entertained with it and never be bored with this specialization, which is really exciting. Cool. As far as like keybinds, it's a lot of keybinds though. Like it's a lot. Like I'm not even playing some on use abilities in here. Like again, I said I didn't take the Mind Games. I would lose Powered Life, so maybe it's a little bit alleviated, but it's definitely one of the more bloated classes. So if you're somebody who likes that, you want a lot of keybinds, you want a lot of like competitive variance in what you're choosing to do with your class, you're really going to like it. Now, if you want something that's a little bit more simpler, a little bit more zug, like a Demon Hunter or Fury Warrior or something like that, probably not going to be the spec that you want to go after. You're going to be wanting to like seek a challenge, min-maxing your actions per minute, and really trying to focus on like doing damage and balancing that with your healing. And you've got a lot of things to juggle around, but I really like the challenge of it, right? That's why I said this was my favorite spec, is because I really like the challenge of it. I think it's getting a lot of awesome new tools. It's going to be a fantastic spec to check out. And hopefully, as they do ongoing tuning, it seems like they have been very responsive towards feedback. And hopefully that just continues to be the case, that it's likely going to be a really solid pick for you. But do take that competitive viability thing that I talked about earlier with Death Knights and Demon Hunters being a bit of a struggle, and then ranked 3v3 matches probably being very long with dampening starting so much later that your mana is probably going to be a big issue there. But if those aren't a problem for you, you like the competitive challenge of it, and let's say they do make changes to the game and those aren't going to be issues, man, this like it's really tough for me to pick a class for myself. I had people come in my stream and ask me, like, what am I going to be maining in the next expansion? And like, I don't even really know, honestly, what I want to main, because I'm trying all the classes and pumping out these videos for you guys so you can see the perspectives of it. And every time I try a new class, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best class. Like, I got to play this. And then I log on something else. I'm like, wait a minute, maybe it's something else like this. So I definitely want to be getting these videos out to you to give you a better idea of what's going on with these classes. This is a super high skill cap, really rewarding if you can manage to maintain all these atonements and maintain your Purge the Wicked, get in for fears. Always got to be in a good position. Like, you're just going to feel like a turret in the middle of a battlefield blasting people down. This type of situation is also one where I think you're going to maybe struggle more as a priest, right? Like, you're getting attacked by melee DPS. You don't have all those abilities that you had from Shadowlands. So getting away, positioning, I'm pulling them out in the corner, out in the open, so my allies can kind of blast them off of me, because that's going to be my only option. Trying to run away is not going to really work for me because I don't have a lot of tools to run away. I can get distance, Light's Wrath, Penance, like 40, maybe 50% of his health gone in that combo. Super satisfying when you're able to slip away, and super fun when you're getting these atonement effects going and getting tons of these really fast casted multi-charge penances. We can drop barrier out in the open to just hold them out here and bunker down and do even more damage. Really kind of satisfying experience. From myself here, having played the specialization, the only thing was adapting to the fact that Powered Shield has a cooldown rather than the Weakened Soul. That has been like, I've still not 100% readjusted to it, and I'm often using Powered Shield on the wrong target or not maintaining 3 atonement charges. Here you can see I'm getting pressured. If I didn't have this Demonic Gateway, probably dead in this position. But look, that new Void Shift that I can get as disc, allowing me to just swap my health with my partner here, is going to allow me to recover, buy more time to get damage onto this warrior and blast him out of the arena. So really fun. You can look at the scoreboard. I'm half of a Fury Warrior, doing basically as much healing as the Evoker. So like I said, you've still got that DPS itch, but you want faster Qs, this is the spec for you. Other than that, thank you very much for listening to me ramble on about Discipline Priest and show you how awesome it is. Strengths and weaknesses. Obviously, don't want to leave out the bad and only leave in the good with something like this, because you should be aware of the whole situation and circumstance that's going on with it. And I want as much information available to you as possible. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a thumbs up and comment down below with your thoughts. Are you going to be maining a Discipline Priest? What class is catching your eye? What class should I do next? Do you think that Blizzard is going to deliver on their promises here with continued tuning and listening to feedback? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will catch you in the next video.